Good morning. So we'll start a new chapter, Sound, Session 1, and this is the last chapter in your science syllabus. So basically when we talk about sound, you have always studied about sound from your 8th standard, 7th standard, right? One common definition of a sound is a form of energy, right? But how does sound travel? We know that it is a form of energy. Sound travels in the form of a wave. Now what type of wave? We'll discuss that later. So basically let's first understand it's a form of energy and it travels in the form of a wave. Now what is a wave? Wave is the disturbance set up in the medium. Now basically it could be any medium. When I talk about a medium, it could be air, it could be water, it could be solid. That is, a medium could be solid, liquid or a gas. Now basically if you have a still water and you just throw a stone on the still water, what do you see? There are wave formation in the water, right? So when is this wave formation formed? When there is a disturbance set up in a medium. So whenever there is a disturbance set up in a medium, that give rise to a wave, and that is nothing but as a sound when we talk about a form of a energy which travels in the form of a wave. Now basically when we talk about a wave, or basically when we talk about a sound, we talk about, or it is formally or further bifurcated in terms of mechanical wave and electromagnetic wave. So all mechanical waves require a material medium for their propagation. Electromagnetic wave does not require any material medium for this propagation. Now what do you mean by a material medium for propagation, children? We have studied that in standard 8, 7th as well. Sound requires a material medium. Suppose you have a bell jar or you have a empty bell jar kind of a thing. You just invert that over a mobile phone or any ringing instrument. Then if there is no air inside it, we create in such a way that there is no air inside. When you ring that mobile, you cannot hear because there is a vacuum created inside. And sound cannot travel in vacuum because sound requires a material medium for propagation. So an example for mechanical wave, I can give it as a sound wave. Because it requires material medium for its propagation. Now, let's come to the electromagnetic wave. Electromagnetic wave does not require material medium for their propagation. So, basic example I can talk about here is light wave. All light waves, different types of light waves. Now, in that even visible light will come, infrared will come, all the types of light waves are electromagnetic waves. Then these does not require any material medium for propagation, and apart from that also, when we compare a light wave and a sound wave, light wave travels much faster than the sound wave. The best example here is when we see lightning and thunder, right? So what you see and what you hear first actually. So now just we'll consider sound wave is nothing but a thunder. Thunder we can hear, and lightning, that is what we see. So though it thunders and then though there is lightning and the thunder, but we still see the lightning first and thunder just few seconds after the lightning. Is that true? There are many questions asked on this. So during lightning and thunder, we see the lightning first, then followed by thunder. Why? Because light waves travel faster than the sound waves. We are not discussing much over that here, just the difference between an electromagnetic wave and a mechanical wave. That means light waves can travel in vacuum as well, wherein mechanical waves cannot travel in vacuum. So this was the first part, children. Now the next part that we talk about here is further sound waves are again broadly classified as transverse waves and longitudinal waves. Let us understand what are these two types of waves. So mechanical waves I can tell Mechanical waves are further classified as transverse waves and longitudinal waves. Now transverse waves, for example, if I have to talk about, I have two strings here which is tied, two sticks are there. For that two sticks, what I will do here is I will tie a string tightly. Okay. After tying the string tightly, I will just set up a disturbance in the medium. In this, I will just create some disturbance. Or imagine that you are holding a string, wire or rope in one of your hand, and your another friend is standing on the other side. So holding the same other end of the rope, you just give a jerk, right? What do you see? When such jerk is given, do you see this type of a wave there? Right? Do you see this type of a wave? This type of a wave formation is called as a transverse wave. Example. Now longitudinal waves, when we talk about, again we have a stick or a pole. For this, imagine a spring is tied. Right? So this is the formation of a longitudinal waves. Our sound waves are the example for longitudinal waves. Now let's understand about these two waves a bit in detail. Now when we talk about the transverse waves, now transverse wave, the particle of a medium. So this is the way how they are traveling. Yeah, they are traveling in a horizontal position, right? The particle of the medium is with respect to the direction of the motion of the wave is always perpendicular. That is, the direction of the particle and the direction of the motion of the wave are always perpendicular to each other. Direction of the particle and direction of the motion of the wave, when they are perpendicular to each other, such a type of waves are called as transverse waves. All light waves are example for transverse waves. They move in this direction. Okay. Come to the longitudinal waves. It's also pronounced as longitudinal, also sometimes, depends. In longitudinal waves, they are going horizontal. Direction of the particle is also along the direction of the motion of the wave. Direction of the particle is perpendicular to the motion of the wave here, right? Direction of the particle is parallel to the motion of the wave. Such a type of wave is called as a longitudinal waves. Example are our sound waves. So children, here again we are studying this chapter a bit in brief only, I can say. We don't study much about electromagnetic waves as well here, right? Now, once we have understood the concept of wave, there are other several terms associated with the wave, such as a wavelength, crest, trough, frequency, amplitude and time period. Let's understand that in detail. So, few parameters with respect to the wave, let us understand. So, I have just drawn an example of a transverse wave and a longitudinal wave here. So, when I talk about a transverse wave, so the distance traveled by a particle from here, it reaches a peak point. From this reaches here to this point, children. This point is called as one complete wave. Same as when we talk about here also, but here a bit difficult for you to understand. So I can show it here. From here to here it is called as one wave. This is half a wave. And the displacement what you see here of these waves are called as crest, and this bottom is called as trough. So what is a wavelength now? So distance traveled by a wave, or you can say one complete cycle of a wave is called as a wavelength, or I can also tell that the distance between two successive crests or distance between two successive trough is called as a wavelength. That's a simple way to define a wavelength. Wavelength is denoted by a symbol lambda, which I have written there. SI unit of a wavelength is meter. So this distance or The trough cannot be seen in the next part here. So if I draw a small wave, so this distance is a lambda or this distance is a lambda. So sorry, not this distance. This distance. This, yeah, of course, correct. Distance between two successive troughs is called as a lambda. Next is the amplitude. The maximum displacement of the particle of the medium. Now, the maximum displacement with respect to the perpendicular part is called as a amplitude. So how much high the wave has travelled, how much it has displaced it. For example, see, in this wave if I tell, this is the amplitude. This is the amplitude. So the maximum displacement of the particle of a medium is termed as amplitude, that is also measured in terms of meters. Frequency. The number of complete waves produced in 1 second or number of vibrations per second is called as a frequency. So how many number of waves? Complete waves are produced in 1 second. Complete waves are not half wave there. Is called as a frequency. SI unit is hertz, denoted by this letter like a V, but we read that as a mu. Okay, it is just in italics we can write the V. 1 hertz is equal to 1 vibration per second. Last is the time period. Time taken to complete 1 vibration. So here you understood that 1 vibration per second is nothing but 1 hertz, that is a frequency. The time taken to complete that 1 vibration is called as a time period, measured in terms of seconds. So we can give here it as frequency is equal to, frequency of a wave is equal to 1 over the time period, or time period is equal to 1 by frequency. We have numericals based on this. We have numericals on wavelength as well. Wave velocity, that is nothing but speed. We'll discuss that later. So these are the few terms with respect to the wave. When we talk about this, we talk about amplitude, we talk about frequency, we talk about time period. So based on the amplitude, we should also know the another few parameters of sound, that is loudness, intensity, note, tone, etc. Right? So let's understand that also in detail. So when we talk about intensity of sound, loudness of the sound, both term to us as a similar type of a word, correct? But they are not. They both are different from each other. Now melody or music when we talk about, or noise when we talk about, both are sound, but still they both are different from each other. How are these different from each other? Let us understand that. So, few more concepts about sound, as I had told you about intensity, loudness or tone and note. The actual definition, the actual meaning is given in the book, children. Here I am just explaining it. Now when we talk about an intensity, it is the actual sound produced by the source. Now for example, you boost the TV's volume, or you boost your mobile's sound, or your what do we do? That means of boosting the sound, that means we are simply increasing the volume, right? Now, increasing the volume is called as increasing the intensity of sound. In basic definition, in simpler meaning, if I have to explain you this. Loudness. Now, for example, now I have increased it, I have boosted the volume to the maximum sitting in the hall in front of the TV. But you are sitting in a room inside with the door closed. Another person is in the kitchen with working on some cooking food or something on that. That means another person is just sitting right next to you. The loudness depends upon the source of the detector. For example, the person who is sitting next to you can hear the loud sound, the same sound, okay, because the volume is boosted to a high. But the person in the bedroom whose door is closed, the person in the kitchen who is cooking something, can actually differ in the intensity of sound. The loudness differs there. That means loudness, the volume of the sound as per detected by the listener, is something known as the loudness. So here I have made you to understand the meaning of intensity and loudness. Definition wise, the actual thing what you have to write is given in the notes, right? This is the actual volume increasing. This is as per detected by the listener. That is called as the loudness. See, loudness will be the same. If in case you have a hearing problem, then of course you cannot hear as much as the another person is hearing. So that's the difference between intensity and loudness. The simple meaning. Next is tone and a note. Now you press one key of a piano. You press one key. You press the keypad of a mobile, right? You just hear one single tone there, right? That one single tone, a single frequency sound is called as a tone. Now, a piano when it is only pressed once gives you a single note. But if it is pressed continuously with a musical note, that gives you a tone. Set of tones makes a note. This is the major difference between a tone and a note. Then the remaining few things what you have about music and or melody or noise, you very well know that the pleasing sound is called as a music or a melody. The irritating sound is called as a noise. Now, some pleasing sound, see, for example, you listen to a music which might be very pleasing to you, but that might be a noise or an irritating sound for somebody else. So, it depends on the receiver as well. So, apart from this, shrillness, pitch, you have already studied this in your standard 8. Nothing much to discuss on that. You can just go through the points given about the intensity, loudness, tone, note, shrillness or pitch of a sound in the notes. Now the next we move on to some other applications of sound. We'll understand about what is an audible sound, inaudible sound, what do we call, what is the range of an audible sound and range of an inaudible sound. So, few more concepts about sound. Reflection of sound. The reflection of sound when I talk about, it is called as an echo. Now, why do we call reflection of a sound as an echo? Now, basically we know that reflection of light. So, what is that? Angle of incidence is equal to angle of reflection. The same thing happens with respect to sound also. Now, there are certain experiments, activities, you can just check it out in the textbook as well. You have two pipes. Okay, so what you talk from here or if you just make some sound from here, the another person can hear that exactly at this point. That is, the angle of incidence of hearing sound is equal to the angle of reflection of hearing. I mean from here, what is that incident reflecting part? Incident part is same as the reflecting part. Something called as a laws of reflection of sound. So, reflection of sound we call that as an echo. Now, when do we get an echo? Do you get echo everywhere? Usually you get an echo in an empty room sometimes, yes, or you get an echo at a particular place, but have you ever observed that there should be a particular distance also from a person to an obstacle, right? That distance should be 17.2 meter, approximately 17.2 meter. If the distance is there, only then the proper echo is heard. Now, in the rooms or in the halls, when we talk about the empty halls, that's actually not an echo. There, when we talk, you feel that as an echo, but the sound gets distorted by many other things. But the same room, that means the same room should have an echo always, right? It will not have, because once the room is filled up with the things, say cupboard, wardrobe, so many other things, the sound starts getting absorbed by the other things there. So at that point of time you cannot hear. But the actual echo, when we talk about, it is a reflection of the sound. You also have some numericals based on them. The minimum distance to hear the echo is 17.2 meter. So what you speak has to go, hit the obstacle and come back the same. So that distance should be 17.2 meter to actually hear an echo. Then another important term here we have as reverberation. Now what is this reverberation? Reverberation is something what we actually see in the auditoriums or hall. Now have you seen the setup done in the auditoriums, halls, cinema theatres? So usually they have a soundproof system. How is the soundproof system? They have heavy thick curtains, right? The walls are made rough. That is one thing. Seating arrangement is done from the lower to higher. That is one thing. Apart from that, the roof is also in the shape of a dome. So all these things are done so that the sound which comes out is not distorted by many places and it reaches the receiver correctly. The persistence of sound in a big hall due to the repeated reflection of sound from walls, ceiling and floor of the hall is called reverberation. This is actually a reverberation which will happen in the hall, which will actually happen. But we can avoid having the reverberation in the hall. How? What are the steps? What are the precautions we take to avoid this reverberation? That is what we construct a hall in the shape. The roof is constructed in the dome shape. That is how it is designed. The walls are made rough or thick curtains are used or some cloth panels are being attached to the walls which is soundproof so that the sound does not escape outside. So these are such several things how we can reduce reverberation in the hall. A very important question which is usually asked for 1 mark or for 2 marks with the steps how to avoid that. Now, next is reflection of sound. Applications of reflection of sound. Now, when we talk about reflection of sound, there should be some application. Where do we use it? We use this in the stethoscope. Now, what is this? An instrument used by a doctor to listen to our heartbeat, right? So, what does the doctor do? He keeps the stethoscope on our chest, listens. The heartbeat, that is nothing but those sound waves actually travels. How it travels? Through reflection. So, it reaches the sound, it reaches and again it reflects back. Through that it reaches our ear, right? From that particular point, that's actually a small brief, what you can say here is not a theory but a description how actually it works. Now here we did not understand the description how it works. Just we have to know applications of the reflection of sound. One best application is the stethoscope. Second is the soundboard which is used in the hall auditorium which will reflect the sound. So these are the basic two things or examples what I can say on reflection of sound. Next, let us understand about range of hearing. Can we hear all types of sound? You might say yes, I can hear music, I can hear talking, I can hear birds singing, right? But yes, to a level yes. Human ear can only hear the sounds which is 20 Hz to 20 kilohertz. That is something called as a audible sound. The sound which is in the range of 20 Hz to 20 kilohertz. 20 kilohertz is 20,000 Hz. In between this, 20 to 20,000, only in between that we can hear. Anything beyond 20,000 Hz, we cannot hear. Anything below 20 Hz, we cannot hear. So, the sound range which we can hear with between 20 Hz to 20 kilohertz is called as a audible sound or also known as a sonic sound. The sound which is beyond 20 kilohertz, 20,000 Hz, beyond that is called as an inaudible sound or ultrasonic sound. Then, the sound which is below 20 Hz, which is called as, which we cannot hear, are called as inaudible sound or infrasonic sound. Now, basically audible sound is something what we all know. When we talk about inaudible sound which is beyond 20 kilohertz, ultrasonic sound, bats produce ultrasonic sound. Then with the help of the ultrasonic or ultrasound, there are many applications where we use in medical science as well. We will be studying that. About the infrasonic sound, when we talk about all these earthquakes or those shock waves, all these will produce infrasonic sound. Elephants and whales also produce infrasonic sound. So usually they say, right, when there is an earthquake, cat, dog, animals can sense these sounds. Do we hear that? Cats usually sense the danger happening or which is anything which is going to happen in future. slightly, which is going to happen in a few days or something like that, animals can actually sense it, right? You have heard your elders telling this. That's because they are able to hear this infrasonic sound, right? So where we cannot hear, nor this is something ultrasonic. Now we will study more about ultrasonic sound here, that is applications or different types of an ultrasonic sound. Where do we use it in the medical science, and how does bat use this sound to communicate? Applications of ultrasound. So it is used to detect the cracks in the metal box. So sometimes what happens, you have a metal box which looks very fine from outside, but internally it might be damaged or there might be some crack or flaws. So when it is subjected to the ultrasound, that will detect if in case that metal box has any cracks, flaws or any defect in that without defecting the main material, or without defecting the metal blocks, it will detect if any flaws is found in that. It is used to investigate internal organs of human body such as liver, gallbladder, kidney, uterus, heart, etc. Echocardiography. So when I talk about it is used to investigate the internal organs, which heart when we talk about. Echocardiography, a short word for that is ECG, what we say. So what happens exactly in the echocardiography? The waves are used to reflect the action of the heart and its images are formed. Now, whatever is done with respect to the sound waves, they are all safe to our body, right, as per the medical science. But when we go with some other rays, that is X-ray or all these things, when our body is subjected to that, those might be harmful. If you have seen, if you enter an X-ray room, if any unknown person enters an X-ray room, they ask them to cover their body sometimes, right? Because those rays might be harmful for your body. But sound waves are never harmful for your body. So, echocardiography, so these waves are used to reflect the action of the heart and its images are formed on a screen through which it is connected. Similarly, ultrasonography, a technique of obtaining the pictures of internal organs of the body using echoes of ultrasound. Where ultrasonography, or we also call it only as a sonography, also used to check the unborn fetus. What is the state condition of the fetus can be checked with the help of this. It is also used to split the tiny stones in the kidney and which can be even crushed into smaller minute granules or pieces. Then another one application is sonar. Sonar is sound navigation and ranging. Now radar, when we talk about, it is radio navigation and ranging used by aeroplanes to detect any metal objects or anything obstacles on their way. Now sonar is used to find the distance, direction and speed of the underwater objects. So what actually happens is, if this is a ship, the bottom is fitted with a transmitter and a receiver or a detector, you can see. So a transmitter, what does it do is, suppose if we want to find what is the depth of the sea, or if there is any submarine or anything which is submerged inside the water, you need to find the location, exact location. At that point of time, it will send the rays. Transmitter will send sound waves are sent, not rays, sound waves are sent. If there is any obstacle, it will hit the obstacle and it will come back, right? So once it comes back, the detector or the receiver receives it. The time taken by the transmitter to send the obstacle or to strike the obstacle and come back to the receiver or the detector, the time is calculated and hence the distance is measured. Same as in echo, how we talk about how much it goes and how much it comes back. With the help of that, distance can be measured. Used as known as a sonar. Very important question. The steps figure is all important. It's given in the book. I've just explained the method how it actually works. Apart from this, bats also use ultrasonic sound. Like for example, bats cannot see, they are nocturnal animals, right? So while flying in the night, it can just go and hit any obstacle. So it might hurt itself, injure itself. But these will send those sound waves which will go hit, strike the obstacle and come back. So bat can detect what is actually there. It can catch the prey with the help of the sound, as well as it can also avoid any obstacle if it is there. So these are the applications of ultrasonic sound. The last part of the lesson is human ear. Structure and how our human ear works. It is the same repetition of your 8th standard what you had studied about human ear in chapter sound. Let's recapitulate that once again. So we'll do the last part, that is structure of human ear. So before we do that, one small correction I would like to make. I just discussed that echocardiography is same as ECG. ECG and echocardiography are two different terms. Okay. So let's continue with this. Structure of human ear. Now basically human ear, we can divide it. It's not actually divided, but for our convenience we can tell that it is divided into 3 parts: outer ear, middle ear and inner ear. Now outer ear, when I talk about, it consists of pinna and ear canal. That is, this is pinna. This is something called as the flexible part, that is outer ear, which is nothing but a pinna. Ear canal is the thing, just if you insert your finger into your ear which goes inside, that is a ear canal. Then eardrum. Eardrum is a elastic kind of a structure which is further it moves to the, eardrum comes under middle ear here. So eardrum is an elastic type of a structure. Sometimes you might have heard, right, eardrum got ruptured because of inserting any sharp objects or while cleaning your ears, which we have to be very careful. So from ear canal to eardrum, after eardrum, it consists of 3 bones which are interconnected to each other, that is hammer, anvil and stirrup. So the sound which enters our ear through pinna, right, through the ear canal, reaches the eardrum, reaches the 3 bones which when vibrate the sound and sends the sound to the oval window further to cochlea. Cochlea is a snail-like structure. Now how is the snail mounted and just it is there in the shell? It looks like that. Cochlea has some hair-like structure. So the sound which enters, the sound pressure which enters inside, the cochlea will convert this sound pressure to electric signals, right? These electric signals reaches our brain via auditory nerve. Our brain receives these signals as a receptor through which we can hear the sound. This is how the human ear works. So the description or the process is not that very simple as it sounds here, but to make it very simple and easy, this is a basic description of a working of a human ear. So in textbook the figure is given, very important. Explain the structure of human ear, the figure, flowchart as well as the points. What points I have discussed, they are as well given in the notes. So you have to write all these things. That gives you the structure of the human ear. So children, with this we complete the chapter sound. There are numericals on this chapter. Some formulas are also there. The basic formula is about echo and about time period and frequency, as well as wave velocity and wavelength. We'll discuss the formula tomorrow once again, and we'll start the numerical